So when I walked in, of course, like the first person I would go to for context about the kids, the school, the community, everything, right, was my ex-fellow, which was Nalika, right? Of course, the next step was a lot of conversations with the HM, a lot of conversation with the social worker about the context of the community. So as I went ahead in the first year, realizing more about the student vision scale is what got me to think more about, do my kids know all these problems and do they think about them as problems, right? So it's a lot about them being self-aware of their condition and their circumstance. Then in my second years, when I involved the parents a lot more. First year, of course, we had PTMs and I did go community visits. I spent a lot of time in their houses. But in the second years, when I started using that, right? When I joined SNC to get a lot more context of the community, right? About the problems and stuff. SNC is just a beautiful thing, beautiful space to kind of learn that. I got more in touch with the parents and we did organize PTMs. The kids sat down, wrote down in classes with me, several classes, it was a long process. What they're good in, what they're not good in, and and breaking that down as well into academics, into values, into character traits, like their own characteristics, their own personality traits. And a lot of what the mindset behind this was, can the kids learn to utilize their strengths to overcome their area of development, right? Because you don't start again from scratch. You start from a resource you already possess. Kids translated that into Hindi and shared it with the parents and said, what am I good in? मैं किसमें अच्छा नहीं हूँ. Then they pulled out the answer that they had written for the same answers. And then there was a comparison of that, right? Right then and there, they compared. They said, I said this, but you said this. So how much do you know me? How much do I know, myself? And how much is our reality matching? And then they kind of from there built their own goals and sort of vision for what they want for the kid in the future, also like right now. So that was a lot about getting it from the community and from the parents. So in academics, something that they did really well with Nalika was English, reading comprehension. And that's something that again I walked in and was very aware of. I went through all her trackers, right? So I knew where the kids were when she started and how much they grew. First year we did a lot of, again, utilizing our existing resource to build on something we want, which was our existing resource of the 6-7 people who were on grade level. I didn't do anything, they built the others. Right now we've got 18 of them at grade level, out of a class of 28. I had a conversation with the Akanksha curriculum head, maths curriculum head. He realized that the 6th grade maths curriculum was really integral to their success in the 10th grade. And that kind of stuck with me a lot because I myself walked in thinking I'm going to be fine in English. I don't know about math. When I went off for the summer before 6th grade, I took my math textbook with me. I went around, I asked a few people to help me because I was an institute. So I found some people from different cities, like, okay, this is what it is, what do you do to teach math? So we started this year with a very set, mindset. It's something I told the kids in week 1, right? This year we're going to ace math, like that's our goal because we're good in English and it's going to automatically grow from there. We got to set our maths basics. And that's just something that's been phenomenal. Like I've enjoyed it a lot. My kids and I together discovered this crazy love for math, which is something so new in this class. Something that every single person in this world needs, and just generally in 5th graders, of course they needed it, was just a lot of deeper thinking. And the beauty of it was they were exposed to it a little bit with my ex-fellow, right? Archaeology, you find something out of the ground and you got to make use all the clues to kind of figure out a context for it. So in math, we do that a lot in that way, right? Like getting them to figure out how to solve answers without me telling them what to do. And of course, me pitching in wherever they would encounter a new kind of concept which they wouldn't know about, but just throwing that in after keeping the question open to them. So even if I know they won't ever figure it out on their own, that's not a reason for me not to ask them to figure it out. They'll fail, but that's just exactly the process I want them to undergo, right? So I think that's something that I brought a lot from my own experiences, my own idea of what learning should be. A lot of classes with paintings brought in, or art brought in, or like some kind of sculpture brought in or something, right? 15 minutes of discussion, it's thinking more about the world, understanding it better, right? And then going into, okay, now write a paragraph describing it. So they're doing that in class, but it started again from a place where they're actually enjoying something. It's a lot about not teaching them what to think, teaching them how to think, right? How you have access to unlimited knowledge just by being observant to things around you and just being open to learning, right? You learn anything and everything with just like the environment around you, right? So just being open to that, how can they facilitate their own learning for the rest of their life? whatever they do, right, they're going to know why they're doing it and they're going to know how to make themselves successful, from it. I have like about 2 kids in class who still can read only first, second grade English, despite a lot of intervention. So they do have learning disability, which has been diagnosed in one case, not in the other, but also been acknowledged by their parents. So what can we do with that kid, right? If I'm doing inquiry based, that kid participates. What do you see in that painting? That kid can see what's there, right? Why do you think it's there? That kid can form his own idea. There's no wrong answers. And that's brilliant, where the kids feel a part of class as well, a part of that process. So some of the things that the kids do for each other is often like what I would measure success to. And also a lot of what the kids know about themselves. We were playing board games and stuff. So what they were doing is there was this engineering construction thing. And Motasim at that point was at like level 1, grade 1 reading level. Now he's at 3, but he could barely read and write, right? And so when we were playing those board games, he got the confidence and had the confidence in that space to get up and say, if anybody needs help with the construction, come to me, right? And that's something beautiful. When I would say success story, I think I would say like instances like this where I see that the kids have gone far enough to actually know their own strengths and feel confident enough about those that they don't lose their own sort of reality and their own identity in pursuit of somebody else's identity, right? Their whole attitude of as a team, what are we doing? As a team, what are we, what are our actions, what are our beliefs? As a family, what are our academic growth as well? So even in academic growth, sure they target their own, but they're always like, what can I do to make, so if we say the target is 70% for this exam, one kid's like, okay, I know I'm going to get 90. But then what is his responsibility? He knows that. He's like, my responsibility is make sure this person gets it so he can boost up so we can all go up together. So if they're given independent work, they can ask questions to me. But there are 10 other kids in the class they can ask questions to who are going to answer it. So they move around. And they feel free to ask because again, if it all just comes to me, nothing will ever get done, right? So how can they be self-sustaining? So I think that's just another thing that's really cool. And what we have a lot of conversations with what would you do if you didn't have a teacher next year? And they came up with like 5 different ideas on it, and that was just really fantastic too. So like you said, the biggest opportunity, which is Nalika's classroom, is also one of the biggest challenges because of the fact that when you enter, there's just like so many, I would say, expectations in some sense, and also the whole fact that they were here when I started, or rather they were here when I started. What can I do to take them even higher? And that just needs a lot more of like time and investment. I'm a person who wants to do a lot of things by myself, and I do believe that I can, and I'm capable of doing most things, and I can help my kids. But a big realization this year was that some of my boys had adolescent issues, and I realized that nothing I did would make a difference, as in no direct action of mine would impact, that I would have to be okay with not being the only person to help them out. That I didn't possess all the resources to help them. I would need to connect them to another resource. You're not everything the kids need at all times, but you should be the one to find out what it is that they need. The problem of education, I think that's something that I can't solve, and like nobody can solve alone, of course, but it's also something that I do believe that can't be solved in this generation, right? My responsibility there becomes a lot about how can my kids do it, right? So how can I make sure that I'm building a future for them, or building them in a way, or molding them in a way that they kind of accelerate that and make that happen a lot more, with whether it's with their kids and their family or the people they know, because I think that's just literally the biggest power that I have.